Bricks and Minifigs is your one-stop shop for all things LEGO. Hit the link below to find a store near you. Hey everyone, Joshua Hanlon here at Brickfair, Virginia, and today we're bringing you a battle between Denmark and Prussia. Large collaborative project. I've got a couple of the builders here who are going to give an overview of it, so if you want to introduce yourselves, then we'll take a look at this scene.
Hi, I'm Nate, also known as Nate Lego on Instagram and Flickr.
And I'm Carson, otherwise known as Carson Bricks 1 on Flickr and Instagram.
Okay. And give us an overview of what we're looking at here.
So this is the Battle of Dybbøl. It happened in 1864 between Denmark and Prussia. It's known as Europe's Forgotten War because it helped form what now today is, Europe. This was the decisive battle that really, decided who was going to win in the war, and it was kind of a massacre for the Danes because, the Prussians just slaughtered them.
So that's kind of an overview of it. We can start with kind of the sections you guys worked on. So where did you start here?
Sure, so I built 6 of the plates, kind of starting with this redoubt right here. This is number 3. And I built kind of a weird T-shape, added some of the trenches over there. I built the 2 explosions. I put most of the lights in. I supplied a lot of the figures, supplied about 150 of the figures. And I supplied this like barricade thing right here. It's a new design. So, yeah.
Does that use the Harry Potter wand piece?
Yes, it does. So it uses some weird clip piece with 4 kind of in a circle, and then I just put a bunch of wands on it and made like a nice sort of barricade. So.
And you mentioned the explosions. Talk about how you made those, because that adds a great effect to the build.
Yeah, so I started just with the basic trans orange and lights on there, and then Carson and Max actually put a lot of the other parts on to make it look like a much larger explosion. So.
And you mentioned a lot of the figures as well, so what did you guys use for some of the different uniforms in the build?
Yeah, so we had to collect a lot of parts. We used the Lone Ranger Union torso for the Prussians. It works really well for the uniform. We used a dark blue reverse police cap and black legs for the Prussians, as well as brown Lego rifles. Then for the Danish troops, we have a black fireman's torso with a black kepi and sand blue legs, and they all, or at least most of them, have a custom cape from Capes for Minifigs in the UK. So yeah. And then we used the brown Lego muskets as well. And all the figs here are in light flesh, or light nougat.
There we go, fantastic work. So we'll come back to Carson then. What did you work on?
So I did these 4 plates here with the redoubt, and then these 2 with the windmill in the house.
So let's start with the redoubt and tell us how that came together.
So that came together with a bunch of angled parts. It was kind of hard to do that because, trying to get the exact layout, just a lot of trial and error. I think it came out very well though. We had a little reference on the redoubts though to work on, but came out great.
I think the cannon here is a real highlight. So that's all brick built, right? What pieces did you use?
We used a lot of tires and plates and such. Nate built the holder for it. I built the cannon. So yeah.
And that great smoke effect with the cannonball flying out.
Yeah, Nate did that.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of ice cream pieces and then a 1x1 with studs all on the side. And you kind of just stack the ice cream pieces. Same thing we did for the smoke on the rifles, or on the muskets.
So in the whole layout here, you have the Danish are defending then, and the Prussians are advancing?
Yeah. We wanted to show especially the Danish counterattack with the 8th Brigade. We have some real people like Lieutenant Diensen. He was known to be Denmark's youngest officer. He was the father of one of Denmark's most famous book writers. We have a couple of people from the show. We have Laust and Johan. And then we have this big guy over there. I forgot his name, but he basically came out of the trench when the Prussians were about to capture it. I was just using his rifle to just smack them all down, But, essentially this battle was kind of a depressing loss for Denmark because after 2 weeks of shelling, we have all the craters here. They were slaughtered, and they were retreated to town of Sonderburg and then island of Aus. And eventually in October, they would just give up and, surrender to Prussia.
Well, thank you for the overview. We'll keep moving through with the builders then. So we've got our next builder here. If you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you did.
Hi, my name's Max, or ship_raider on Instagram. And I did these 2 front corner plates, this one and that one at the other end. And we have some advancing Danish on this plate over here with a road coming through it, the middle of it. And then we have the earth turning into the barren earth going into the battlefield.
So the landscaping is definitely one of the highlights of this whole layout. So what was your approach with your section on that?
My main approach was just keeping it as concise with the other guys as possible, just trying to keep the same color palette with the olive green, dark tan, some nougat here, and obviously the dark green grass, which looks really nice with the rest of the color palette. And then on the other plate that I did a trench section. So this is part of the Prussian trenches. They had this interesting layout where they would do one sort of straight line, and then they had these sections where they would come out so that they could come out quickly onto the battlefield if they were advancing.
Yeah, and you've got to get kind of the sloping in there and everything and make that look natural, which isn't an easy thing to do.
No, not easy at all, but I think we did it pretty well, and Noah did his plates quite well with that as well.
Fantastic work, thank you. So we'll go to our next builder then here. What's your name?
So I'm Hunter, so I did this plate right here. It's essentially covered in figs from the Danish 8th Brigade, and I also did some like detailing around the whole setup. I didn't really do that much because Carson and Nate did all the heavy lifting, but yeah, that's what I did so far, and I provide the smokestacks over there. So yeah, I'm gonna let Emil and Noah take it away from here because they did those really nice trenches back there. So
okay. Perfect. Good work. Move on then next.
Yes.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Emil, Milo Bricks on Instagram. Yeah, I did the 2 plates over here. Just some earth plates. Did a few craters. Try to make it a little more interesting, like putting the crater at an angle. I did some of the blood spoofs as well here with the cheese slopes. Help Noah with the smokestacks, and that's about it.
And in case the accent didn't give it away, you are from Denmark, and they forced you to build the Prussian section of the build. I mean,
yeah. I know. It broke my heart. It broke my heart. But Carson and Nate did a really good job on the Danish side. So.
No, but it looks spectacular. Talk about kind of your approach to landscaping in those craters, because it might seem simple at first, but to make that look realistic, it takes a lot of work.
Oh yeah, with the landscape, a thing I really like is doing like these circles, squares, putting them on a tile. That gives you like a half a plate offset. So I did that a lot of different places. I mean the craters, just using a bunch of tiles, slot pieces, ridge plates, and so.
Great work, thank you. And we'll come in now with our next builder. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Alexander, Alex Bricks on Instagram and Flickr. I built these 2 middle plates, and it was a lot of last minute fixing up the terrain and matching different styles, but I think the landscaping came out really nicely with the kind of gradual slope up the hill and charge. So I'm really happy with how it came out, but yeah.
So a lot of that was kind of making sure that like everybody's different sections could meet together and you didn't have sort of strange heights and gaps in there.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it was pictures beforehand, and then also some different styles that people have, and it really makes a nice kind of differentiates parts of the battlefield when people have different styles, maybe more studs, maybe more tiles. And then it comes together at the con and it looks great.
Was there a certain size that each person's kind of sections were for each square?
I mean, each is a 48 by 48 base plate. And then I'm not really sure more than that. It was, the height varies based on it, so a lot of it's filler brick in the middle. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Noah, come on in. What do you have here?
So, Noah Hennings, HD Brick, you know the name already. And for this collab, I worked on 2 trench sections for this build on the Prussian side. And those you can see right here, and then the corner plate in the back. And it's interesting with trench plates because I've done builds before where you have different textures of mud and just earth that you need to do really well and detailed. So when it came to these right here, it was somewhat easy because I've already done it before. The only difficulty that I have had now with this one at least is getting it onto a base plate, because I'm really into organic flowing structures or areas and not really being cemented to a base plate. But it was an interesting challenge, and I was able to overcome it within just a little bit of work and a couple of days of no sleep. So
absolutely key to all Lego building.
That's right.
Well, yeah, it looks great. So I'm glad you were able to contribute here. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So I wanted to come back here. I know we didn't have a chance to touch on these buildings too much here, so if you want to talk a little bit more about those and kind of what that represents.
So this is the famous Dybbøl mill. It was basically a windmill that's been there for centuries. It got hit in the first Schleswig War by Prussian artillery, got rebuilt, burned down in the time before, and then got hit again in the second Schleswig War. So it went through a lot. It was rebuilt in 1914, better. So, and then that was a little farmhouse that you can see in this picture. That's one of the better pictures of those two. Realistically, this probably would have been maybe another 2 rows. It still was close to Redoubt 4. You know, we also wanted to show Redoubt 4 because it was the strongest of all 10 that were at Dybbøl. We also have a small part of Redoubt 3, and that's just kind of like that's how much information we really researched into this. You know, we have the accurate 8th Brigade counterattack. We did have, you know, a little fewer than 10,000 troops for the first wave, but you know, I think it suits its purpose. So,
yeah, and some great kind of building techniques here to get that kind of destroyed look with some of those buildings.
Yeah, I built that a week before the con. I was like, I need to build the top of the roof, and there's not many pictures of the top itself, so I did what I could. So I mean I like it.
So if you guys can then talk a little bit more about kind of the overall collaborative process. What was the planning like in terms of making sure when you got here it would hopefully all go together?
Sure. So I drew the layout about, I'd say, 2 months after last year's convention, and it looked kind of like this without the last row. And Carson really wanted to make sure that we showed the famous mill and the other house that was near the mill. So we went ahead and added an extra row, which made it 3x7. And actually collaborating was pretty smooth. Everyone was pretty responsive in the group chat. It did come together a bit later than we expected. You know, we were working some nights at the con, but overall, I mean, everything lined up pretty well. Very minor work that we had to do while we were here at the start of the convention. So, and everyone pitched in, did their part, brought figures, brought lights, brought other parts. So yeah. And especially I'd like to mention that Noah and Emil went to the battlefield and they got us a bunch of newspapers to kind of make it more authentic. We have a few books up there supplied by Carson. And then Noah also printed us out a bunch of the mock cards so that we could tell the history without having to explain it by, verbally. So yeah, these mock cards came out really nice.
So that's fantastic. You were able to do a fair amount of research then to sort of get an idea of what the battlefield was like.
Yeah, definitely. And there was a lot of resources online that we used. It wasn't just people going there. There's a few databases for how the redoubts were built, books on, exactly what happened here. So,
do you know how many minifigures are on the layout in total?
I'd say I supplied about 150, and I think overall there may be 250 to 300.
Well, it all looks fantastic, so great work to everyone involved here. Thank you so much for taking us through the whole layout. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.